We're starting with today's headlines. Nick Ferrari and Sonia Sodha are with us. Good morning, guys.
Morning, guys.
Good morning. Nick, first of all, let's start with the junior doctors. They're going to be striking again. I know you've been talking about this on the show this morning.
Yep.
What do you know so far?
Well, this breaks down into two separate areas. There are two disputes that the resident doctors, junior doctors are following. One is a pay increase of more than 20%. Now, as the Health Secretary pointed out, they've had virtually 29% over the last 2 or 3 years. And for most people, that is more than enough. And that is why I think you would see, and you have seen in surveys of the level of public support, it's gone from 66 to now 46. I don't think there's a lot of support. Now, where it's different is, and this is extraordinary and something that I think the Health Secretary does need to address, there are tens of thousands of unfilled jobs within, even though we need doctors, these resident doctors train and they're not able to get into. Now, this is in part because, as often happens, without in any way being rude, they are at the first level. They want to progress to the second level. They are obviously higher paid. And in many health trusts, they have frozen those jobs because they save the money. So you have a number of junior doctors who've put in all those years at university, put in all those years at medical school, put in their years as a junior or resident doctor, and they can't get to the next step as a psychiatrist or a anaesthetist or whatever it might be. That argument, I think, would get a lot of public support because these men and women are vital to us and they've trained. The pay argument, for me, I think they've done pretty well and they have to accept it.
Sonia, it's actually the strike is going to run from 7 a.m. on the 17th of December until 7 a.m. on the 22nd of December. I mean, talk about hitting us where it hurts.
Definitely.
Because that is a terrible time of year.
It's 5 days. It's the third strike of the year. And it is at the busiest, one of the busiest times of year for the health service. So just before Christmas, it's when the health service is trying to get people in for operations, get them treated, get them out again before Christmas, because everyone wants to be home for Christmas. No one wants to be cooped up on an NHS ward during Christmas, do they? Other things that make this difficult is that the flu season has come earlier this year. So I think it was just last week we saw a day when there were as many ambulance call-outs for one trust as they would normally have on New Year's Eve, the busiest night of the year. So the NHS is under greater strain than normal anyway, because of the early spike in flu cases. And overall, it's just really bad for other staff because they're having to cover the resident doctors who are out on strike. I actually completely agree with Nick. I think 29%, it's a decent pay rise, hasn't quite got the junior doctors back to where they were in 2010. But actually, when you look across the public sector, everyone has suffered. Teachers are not paid the same as they were in 2010. Nurses haven't either, and they're not all going out on repetitive strikes, are they? And the government has said they really want to... They recognise there is this issue with training, with job locations. They want to sit down and resolve it and talk to junior doctors about it. But junior doctors are saying, no, it's about pay too, and we're going on strike. And I do not think this is reasonable behaviour anymore. And I think that is why they're losing public sympathy.
I guess, Nick, one of the things that the doctors are saying, the resident doctors, junior doctors are saying that, as Sonia pointed out, they've had these pay increases, but it's still a fifth lower than 2008, what they were earning back then, once inflation is taken into account. These are hugely important people within our infrastructure of our country. Do we not want to reward them in a way that they deserve to be rewarded for the skills and the jobs that they have to carry out?
Perfectly fair. But to Sonia's point, which is absolutely accurate, you cannot look at them in isolation. You have to look at them alongside teachers and other public sector workers. And once you factor it in, actually, you can see they've done rather well. They also have, and good luck to them, they deserve it. Please don't think, but they have pretty favourable pension arrangements that are not available, certainly to us in the private sector, and are pretty rare even in the public sector. And again, the work they are putting in, they will be there morning, noon and night. They are making decisions that determine literally life or death. So I am not penny pinching. And once they've done their training, they can go on and earn good salaries, and possibly, if they want to, they can move into the private sector in as well. So I do think it has to be taken in the round. Of course, they've done well. They haven't done as well. And I mean, the other point, not all of them, but some of these resident doctors, the union is moaning about, well, they were at primary school at that time, if we're going back 15 years. Not all of them, because I know some stay at resident doctors. So I do think, and I totally underscore what Sonia just said, as regards allowing them to progress, to get to higher paid positions, that has gone wrong. The government acknowledges it's gone wrong. What they should have done more, I think, is rather than talk about beginning a process, beginning conversations, let's see some concrete steps. But just banging the drum about pay, I'm sorry, I think, I know a lot of my listeners, and I'm pretty certain a lot of this morning viewers would say that I just can't find myself supporting that.
And that strike at that time of year is going to be so
Yes.
heavy.
Definitely. And if you're somebody who's got your operation cancelled,
Yes.
it might not be a life-saving operation, but it might be really pain-saving. You know, if you've got to have your hip replaced or whatever, having it put off till after Christmas is just miserable. And you don't know when you're going to call back. Might be February, might be March.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our next story. We do talk about this an awful lot. Children and young people and teenagers using social media. New analysis, though, and this is quite extraordinary. Sonia has found that almost 1 million children under 5 years old are already active on social media.
I think, yes, this is reflecting something that we all know is going on, which is that when you're a parent, sometimes getting a screen out and putting your kid in front of a screen is the way to, you know, helping them be quiet or making things calmer. It's not good for kids, though. This is technology that is designed to be addictive for our adult brains. You know, apps are designed so that you can't put them down. You want that hit of seeing how many people like your post on social media, for example. So it's really not designed for children of this age. In this report, actually, there was one teacher quoted, and this is a really extreme case, but it's very sad. She was doing the pre-reception visits, going round and seeing the children who'd be starting at reception the next year. She came across a 3-year-old who had never been to nursery, who'd basically been plopped on her sofa her whole life, in front of an iPad. And that child, when she started reception, she did not have the core strength to do carpet time and sit upright. So it's affecting not just her cognitive development, but her physical development. Now, that's a very extreme case. There aren't, I mean, that is neglect, child neglect. There aren't going to be many parents who are doing that. It's a very difficult world we live in because, you know, parents are out and about. It's very difficult. I really do not think social media is designed for children that young. And the more parents can keep their kids away from screens when they're very young, I think, particularly the screens like iPads and iPhones that go right in front of your face, I think TV's a bit different, the better.
And Nick, to be fair to these social media companies, they have restrictions. They do say they're not designed for children that young, teenagers. There's age restrictions typically set at 13 for a number of these countries. We know that a number of the companies. Australia has taken measures in their own hand. It's the 10th of December, so it's next week of this year. Anyone under 16 won't be able to keep or make accounts on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, X, Facebook, and more. The policing of that is a different thing altogether. So they have these age restrictions in place, but you can get around those age restrictions. They're not particularly strict, are they?
It's the same as when they say children can't buy vapes or vaping material or whatever it might be. The restrictions might be there, but the youngsters know how to get around it. Look, I think this is quite generational because I have a confession to make. When it came to raising our children, there were 3 of us in our marriage. There was me, my ex-wife, and there was Thomas the Tank Engine. And I will admit that sometimes we did put the children in front. And even when I hear the music now, it almost triggers when I hear that theme tune. But it's so different because television was controlled. There was Ringo Starr reading a story about the green engine and the fat controller or whatever it might be, and you knew what you got. And probably, Ben, I'm trying to think of your children, probably roughly the same. You probably knew what they got if you put them, or your wife put them in front of telly for half an hour while you made the supper or whatever, the dinner or whatever. Now, it is so different. And to Sonia's point, I obviously read the same copy as Sonia did. The idea is a 3-year-old girl who effectively can't sit up because she's been sat on a corner. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, I think that's just a failure of the parents. I think that is an absolute dereliction of duty.
Yes.
Yeah. I would actually go further than Australia, though. I would just say that the government should say children should only have access to devices that do not have social media apps on them. I would do device-based regulation, and I would say that would incentivise phone companies to produce phones that are locked, that can't download these social media devices. That is technologically possible. They are hack-proof, and that is much better than having age verification, I think, because I agree, kids can get around it.
I mean, what would be the positive effects of a child that age having social media?
Well, I mean, I think there are 2 teenagers, aren't there? Nick, you might know more about this. Are actually taking the government to court over the fact they're putting in Australia the restrictions because they believe actually it's restricted their access to political discourse, which they're able to enjoy. I mean, they are clearly bright teenagers that are doing this.
They won't get that case heard, though, before, as you rightly say, that starts next week. I actually, if you go from what people have just been saying on the radio, there's a lot of support for the measures in Australia because this, in a sense, is like one of the biggest social experiments we've ever known, and we're doing it in real time with our children. We don't know... well, we do know in part, actually, because of Sonia's story. We do know the impact it's having in part in that little children can't sit up on a nursery mat or whatever it might be. The after effects as these 3- and 5-year-olds become pre-teens, teens, late teens. How is that development going to go?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
certainly.
Absolutely.
Thank you both
Thank
for time
you
being.
for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.